I told you.
Let's see. I'm gonna turn it this way.
Which way? Where do you want me to stand?
More in the middle.
Where?
In the middle.
Test. Good morning and welcome to 1 Million Cups. How many of you, this is your first time attending? Where's Bruce? Bruce, isn't it your first time attending? Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. 1 Million Cups is a weekly meetup group for entrepreneurs. We typically have two different startups or small businesses come give their 6-minute pitch, and then we turn it over to the audience to give feedback, share their ideas, make connections, and just this really great community. We are in how many cities, Charles? 78? Wow. Okay, we just made that up. We're in, okay. 1 Million Cups is started by the Kauffman Foundation, and so there are broadcasts happening all over the country. We would like to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors. We meet here every week at Fat Pipe, so I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Stu and Lisa for opening up their doors for us. I also want to, round of applause. I also want to give thanks to a couple of unsung heroes that every time that I've come in, everything's already been set up. So John Ayala, and then Bruce also helps us tear down. Yes, you do. So thank you guys for having a startup. Coffee is provided by Hartford Square. And we're going to talk about a new sponsorship in a little bit. Noventum has been providing the donuts. Live streaming is happening. Thank you. Yeah, enjoy your donuts. Live streaming is happening because of a grant from the CNM, not foundation, but CNM. Stimulus Center. Oh, turn around, it's right behind me. And Nick Lehman Media. So welcome again, and I'm going to turn it over to Steve first so we can get started.
All right. I'd like to introduce our first presenter. I'm actually very familiar with Bowtie. I knew Scott when he first started it. So talked with him. Actually was his project manager over at TVC and helped him win the last year's DealStream Summit competition. But I would also like to introduce Justin, who's going to talk even more about Bowtie and how they're doing so far.
Good morning. So I'm actually going to introduce first James, one of the founders, who is kind of the brains behind all the tech and what makes Bowtie so exciting. And then I'll get into what we're doing here in Albuquerque. So here we go. Here, James.
Hi, guys. So I'm James. I'm the CTO at Bowtie. I'm here to talk just a little bit about how we got started. So a couple of years ago, I was building out an application for one of the crazy ideas that I generally have every weekend or so. And I built a financial system that was allowing you to track your bills and how much money you had in multiple bank accounts over a period of time. Give you alerts, basically, if you're going to drop below a certain balance. And the idea was that I was going to launch this thing, make a lot of money, get really rich doing it. Okay, better? I'm going to step back from the speaker. Okay. So I built this application out, and it worked really well. But every time that you launch this application, you enter your account balances, and you would then click run. You'd put recurring billing in, all kinds of really cool stuff, but then you'd refresh the page, all the data was lost, and you'd start over from the beginning. So what was necessary to make this like production ready would be a user management system. I'd have to take payments for it. I'd have to launch it on a domain. All kinds of stuff that took a lot longer than a weekend to build out. So I was talking with a few buddies from work, and we decided, well, what are we going to do about this? Like, we all have ideas. We all try to build them out. They all take longer than a weekend to push out. What if there was a system where I could reliably build something with version control, with a reliable backend to store my static content, with SSL by default, allowed me to register domains, and allowed me to manage users and take payments from those users. And then kind of allowed other people who are managing the project for me to do things like manage marketing, send emails out. And that was kind of how Bowtie was generated. So Bowtie is a platform that wraps your existing application, if you have one, or helps you kind of launch one, build one out, and manages all of those little production components that are really hard to build out and do really well. And I'll hand it off to Julian now.
Awesome. So who here has ever built a website? Just ever. And your first website, think way back. Were you using a lot of PHP and dynamic stuff, or was probably HTML, some CSS? That's about it. I think most of us were that way, especially if you were on MySpace. You learned HTML and CSS pretty well. So that's kind of what's cool about static apps themselves and static app websites, is that essentially we've gotten used to using WordPress, this concept of I can quickly deploy a CMS, build on top of it, add in plugins, provide something to a client or for my own project, but frankly it can oftentimes be bloated, and that's, whoa, that's the speaker. And so that's where static apps really stand up, and this is what Bowtie is fantastic at, is this ability to say, as a front-end developer, I'm going to create this simple application, get it to market quickly, test it, integrate it with payments, and then get out there and prove my MVP. And so where this gets really exciting, and this is where I'm most excited, is my job is fantastic. I'm the community evangelist for Bowtie here in Albuquerque, and my job is to provide Bowtie to startups and developers here in town, both licensing and also support and training and integration with all the accelerators that we can here in the city. And so we launched last week Launch ABQ. It's a platform for users, developers to sign up, become integrated and trained on the platform, and then we'll be working with the different accelerators here in town over this coming year to train either developers that are working with their startups or tech startups to actually be able to launch on the platform. So that's Bowtie. It's an exciting program that you'll be hearing more and more about, well, from me as I pester people to get on the platform. And yeah, that's Bowtie in a nutshell. So very cool. Any questions? Did I cover everything, James? I think that was kind of it. I ran through it. No, it's an exciting platform, so it's easy to talk a lot about. Let me just point out one thing. As a front-end developer, I can do more with it than I can other applications. I think that is part of what makes this exciting. Not just as a established senior developer can you launch apps, but it's a pathways for newer developers, just as newer startups, to get these to market. Very close. You had a question?
So can you show me like an example of a sweet way it's been used previously, or a hackathon, or I know you've done a lot with it. It's been out there for a little while.
Talk about, so one of the ways that we did our market validation was through the Springboard event. That was last year around this time. And we built out an MVP that had the Stripe payment functionality, some user functionality, not as many docs as we needed, not as many of the polished features that we needed. And we were able to get folks in town to spend a little over a week building out applications on the platform. And some of them did some really complex stuff like video algorithms to find like different types of videos that you'd like to look at depending on what mood you were in that day on Netflix. And then some chat applications and a few other things that launch really quickly. And then we've got, just when we integrated Jekyll, it allowed for a whole new class of sites because Jekyll's a pretty popular static blogging platform. And that allowed people to push blog content out, marketing content out. So we've seen a lot of like splash pages, a lot of brochure sites go out. And then we have a few, like people who are doing like design for other companies are using it now in place of WordPress because we have user management that Jekyll doesn't actually provide by default.
Yeah.
Now, people like you guys, young guys, create cool things that don't exist, okay? And we have all of us have coped without what you have created. The question is, how do you convince us that what you have created is something that we need, will spend money on, and will make our working life better?
So specific to Bowtie, I will say that we're not inventing anything new with static sites. And I think that's important to highlight because that's part of the power of it. What we're doing is we're taking static sites and making them more viable. There's actually been a movement towards static apps recently, but where they really lack the ability to do user management, payment processing, integration with external apps, APIs, and things like that. So on one hand, yes, the product itself, Bowtie, is new, but I think that the feedback I'm getting from developers, especially those who've been around for a decade or more, is, well, yeah, this makes sense. I'm already using a static generator, but now I can take it a step further. So I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, the application itself is new, but the concept isn't.
All right, so not everyone in the room is tech. What the hell is a static site?
Awesome. So a static site is essentially one that is not run on a dynamic server. Yeah. So WordPress run on PHP, it's run on a server that every time, I mean, even with caching, a certain amount of dynamic generation is occurring. So that server is living, is one way to kind of understand it. The HTML and the CSS, and also JavaScript, they don't run on the server in general, sometimes they can, but this allows essentially your application is pre-bundled and then served up to the user. So every time you access the site or the server itself, it's not having to query the database, build out these pages, that's already predefined. And so it takes a lot of that dynamic interaction down into the browser and enables more of an application type experience. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, in tons of ways. It's kind of like, let's say that you print a newspaper, and as the website author, you're the printer of the newspaper. And you got an audience. What if every time that you wanted to give your audience a newspaper, you had to wait for the audience to come to you, and then you had to print one? And then you had to wait for another member of the audience to come to you, and then you had to print one. That's pretty much what WordPress is doing. There are ways around it, caching mechanisms and stuff that change how WordPress operates in that way or tries to push content closer to the user. But a static site is basically printing all those newspapers at once and then delivering that directly to the audience. So it's changing where the generation occurs, I think. It makes it a lot simpler. In the end, you're serving up content. You're not serving up logic and trying to render a page every time. It makes it a lot faster, too.
So I'm not sure if this will clarify or confuse, but so for instance, just this past weekend there was a Teen Startup Weekend, and you all supported a couple of some of the previous startup weekends, both here and elsewhere around the country. I saw a couple of the teams come up with they were doing like Wix sites. So how does this compare? Like somebody, you're just sort of starting from scratch. Maybe you've got some technical knowledge, you've got somebody technical on the team. How does this compare with something that's like a Wix?
That's a tough one. And I'm biased against Wix and Weebly and a lot of these stand-up platforms, in part because there's a compromise for the ease of use to the quality of the product. I think anyone who has used it either as a technical or non-technical user can see that. As far as the necessity or the technical needs, HTML, CSS, and the ability to use Git to push and pull your saves is essentially what's necessary. And then really knowing some JavaScript is going to allow you to fully use the application further. That said, part of what we're doing to connect startups and developers is to offer this to developers in town to be able to support the startups. Because we realize that a lot of startups, the vast majority of them, don't have the same level of technical knowledge for web development that your standard traditional developer does. So by bringing the barrier to entry on launching the application, it allows our local developers to then create more robust applications, launch them quicker, and hopefully for a more affordable price to get that MVP out the door.
I have a follow-up question, Andy, that's totally not related, even though this question's going to be far better. One of the things I know is really exciting, when you guys did, I guess, the most recent launch or the most recent release, you got on Product Hunt. Product Hunt is this great platform for the startup world, for getting visibility for startups and their products. Can you tell us a little bit about the experience of when you actually have one of these engager sites say, hey, this is really cool, you should check it out?
Yeah, and so, I mean, unless you have something specific to... Awesome. So, I mean, as far as there's a couple responses to that. The first of which, of course, is that kind of coverage is fantastic. To see something that we're working hard on, get that level of coverage is just great. The users increase, all is fantastic. There is some prep that goes into it and also a response that has to happen. Along with more users comes a necessity for more customer support. And we did put a lot of effort into making sure that sort of publication was leveraged. That meant making sure that we had all of our product images and materials and media kits ready so that when something like that does get some traction, we're able to make sure that all the resources get into the proper hands. We don't miss out on that opportunity.
And just like nothing in the internet promotion world is free. You will either have to pay for it or put a lot of work into it. With Product Hunt, with Hacker News, with Reddit, with any of these more social sites, you're going to have to do your research, figure out who the people are on those sites who are making content move, figure out how they're doing it, figure out where your product is going to lie in that, and then try to make sure that you're doing a launch on your side too within that community, within that sub-community, and kind of let that grow organically from there. But you got to know who your influencers are, you have to do your research, and you have to put a lot of work into what it is that you actually are putting up on Product Hunt. It's not a, a couple of years ago I'd have thought, hey, just throw it up on Reddit and it's going to take off like wildfire. It doesn't really work that way. You actually have to do a lot of research about who's in those communities and who's moving them.
Yes?
So I understand these functions that you provide in APIs that you can call from within JavaScript and accomplish what you want to accomplish. It also sounds like you have some build system integration. Like I'm having trouble understanding what Bowtie is other than a collection of API calls.
Okay, so have you used GitHub Pages? Okay, so we basically offer all of GitHub Pages functionality, including GitHub compatible APIs for doing repository management. And we offer that on top of an admin interface that allows you to interface with analytics about your users, registration from your users, and we provide like a storage API on top of that. So everything you can do with GitHub Pages to launch a static application, anything you can do with S3 to launch a static application, we'll do that. We introduce caching layers in front of that to make sure that everything's sped up. And then we have domain registration, SSL, and basically all these niceties that you're going to not get from GitHub Pages, we'll provide. And then on top of that, private repository hosting instead of public. So if you're making a website and you don't want your source to be public or you don't want your content to be public, it's behind closed doors. You don't have to worry about it. Then basically a whole bunch of hooks into Zapier and a few other integrations so that we're offering a lot of utilities on top of static, basically. So anything that you'd need to lock down content, you can't do with static sites these days. You can't do with this publishing mechanism, basically. And we're providing ways to do that that kind of make it as functional or as capable as a WordPress installation would be.
Any other questions?
I read the article that was out in the paper this week, and I thought that was really cool, that a way to get your minimum viable product out by having you guys be the meat and then they just add potatoes around it. Could you explain, because I'm not sure everybody's coffee had kicked in yet, right at the beginning, the relationship now that you have, that you're being subsidized to provide these tools to entrepreneurs here in the Albuquerque area. I think that is just awesome, and I'm not sure that everybody totally got that.
Yeah, absolutely. So and I am a big part of that, obviously. As a community evangelist, I'm carrying out this partnership with the city, making sure that we can offer the platform and support to it to anybody that's eligible, especially in the startup community, to make sure it's easier in Albuquerque to launch these sorts of applications. And what does that actually look like? Well, use of the product, you have access to it, and you don't have access just to one site. You can really develop on it, use the different testing environments. And on top of that, there's a level of training that happens or learning curve with any product. You have direct access to us. That includes use cases. We've already had examples where people say, can I do this? And if the response is yes, it's here's how you do it. And if it's no, but you probably should, here's how we can make it happen. So we're making implementations to fit the users here in town, making sure that they can actually produce the type of applications that they need. A step further, though, is that, so yes, if a developer goes right now to launchabq.com, they can actually sign up, begin using the product today. That said, we're also integrating with CNM, ABQID, all the accelerators in the city to be part of their current cohort groups that are going through. This may mean in some instances just helping them really understand kind of the basics if they should use our platform or if there are other better ones, well, for what they're doing. Or if it's helping a developer, yeah, you have the skill set, here's how you actually get your product together. Because yes, there is a learning curve. And that's part of what comes with the experience that James and the guys have is, here's how you launch an application in this fashion, and here's how using this type of technology, you can get it to market quicker. And that's what we're providing for individuals in the city. And any developers, startups that are within the city, we're happy to work with, we're available. Absolutely.
What should non-developers know about what this is, and what can non-developers use or benefit from?
So, non-developers, the biggest thing that this helps outside of the development community is that now this platform allows for local developers to provide quicker services for those startups. Because right now, if you are a non-developer and you're a startup, but you need some developer to work on it, you're gonna have to get that relationship going, whether it's a partnership or contracting, especially on the lean type of startup budgets that we have, that's always an issue. By providing this platform to the local developers, we're really looking to connect that community, and that's part of what we're using some of the accelerators for, because as we've gone into early conversations, they say we've got all these startups, and they don't know what to do. That's how they end up on Weebly. That's how they end up on Wix. So the more that we can provide our platform for the startups to connect with local developers, we're developing that actual ecosystem of the app development community further. As far as the ability to interface with the platform, we're currently working out the ability to essentially roll your own CMS. So a developer can very easily, in the same way that WordPress allows you to edit a page, a developer can very easily set a site up for you. It's easier and quicker to set up than WordPress, in my opinion. And I'm a WordPress junkie up until I discovered Bowtie. But you'll still have the ability to go and edit pages, add blog posts, and have that kind of functionality. But yes, you will have to work with a developer of some kind. Absolutely.
You said you were able to get funding to help people that were eligible. In your case, eligibility is probably for developers only?
As far as you can learn it. And so I think that's kind of a spectrum in the sense that if somebody comes to me and they have the ability to know CSS and HTML and they're already on that pathway and it's something that's feasible, I'll absolutely take the time to teach them how to use Git with our platform. I wouldn't necessarily say that we're going to teach someone to become a developer and hit that upper level developer status. But I also think that spectrum and lowering that bar is we're trying to take people who are early phase developers, those who really have that basic front end knowledge and say, you can be developing more types of applications.
Currently, there's a subsidy or some kind of co-working relationship. Whatever gets developed in this after that, does those tools stay once that relationship might resolve? Like, whatever gets, like if I use this to make something, and the relationship goes away, do I still have that content and access?
Yeah, absolutely. You'd still have, I mean, so we don't own the and correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't own any of the content that you generate on our platform. It's not that we're all of a sudden going to have a bunch of different applications that you built for us. Thank you very much. It was nice working with you. As far as ongoing relationships, how that's handled, I mean, ultimately, we're not just a platform for the city. And so as we scale, this is not something that we're going to be pulling the plug on. Your content's still going to be there. And one of the beauties of the static site is that it's scalable in a very lean fashion. Because your site is printed out into a folder, it's not like it requires even to load our system. Some of the integration does, the Zapier integration, things like that. But for the most part, we've built the system so that you're not married to us just because you worked with us on this.
You guys did the hackathon here. What were kind of the surprises or kind of the gotchas? What did you learn after doing that first hackathon?
It was a lot of fun. I think we learned how much work it really is and how hard it is to launch an MVP. Documentation was a big deal. We didn't have nearly enough of it. We didn't have as many tutorials as we wanted. We didn't have as many guides as we wanted. And it really made things a little bit more difficult for the people who were participating in it. I think we could have shipped a lot more and done a lot faster if we'd spent a lot more time trying to present our product. The thing that really did surprise me, though, was people came in with these ideas about what they wanted to develop, and they stayed committed to those ideas, despite whatever happened during that period of time where they were doing the development. If there wasn't documentation for a feature, they still wanted to ship that idea, and they found ways to do it. They were like committed to what it was that they wanted to ship, and I think that that was really cool to see people who wanted to ship something, who wanted to build something and deliver it, who did, and they found ways to do it. I was kind of surprised by how much work went into it and what they were able to build. It was really impressive. Like the video matching algorithm had to interface with different APIs, had to have a user interface for it. They built it out and did a really good job with it. They spent not too much time, but they had a really good deliverable product, and I don't see that from many hackathons. People don't push that hard, and they really committed themselves to it. It was really fantastic.
I just want to elaborate real quickly on what James is saying as far as by taking a lot of the small details out of launching an application, you can focus on your application because you don't have to figure out the payment processing. You don't have to figure out the payment processing. You can work on your app. If you want a premium app, you want to charge $9 a month to have access to a premium version, you create the premium version, you put it in a folder, you lock that down, you tie in the Stripe integration, and it's done. You're not processing credit cards. So that's the kind of thing that we're doing, is trying to really bring that barrier to entry down, especially for the junior level developers, but even the senior level developers. It goes from taking a weekend to taking an afternoon. You had a question?
I'm not going to say that I understand what you understand at all, because you're speaking a different language right now. But I'm in the process of putting a website, and I'm using WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do you guys have any samples of websites that people have developed using your platform that could kind of compare? Because I don't understand the whole newspaper one at a time. I didn't get any of that. But I just wanted to see, so that I can physically see the difference of what that looks like, the speed,
Yeah, so actually, so launchabq.com, I mean, that's one that we built on the platform. And to just give you an idea of the use case, there's 2 different forms on there that were easily set up. They're tied to it using Zapier. When you fill out the form, Zapier kicks the email out. If you filled out the form that you're applying, it also kicks you into a system that allows you to, that then provides the promo code to actually sign up. So that's an idea not just of how we launched quickly, but how we said, okay, we can then use Zapier to quickly create this integration with other things. It also then adds your entry to a spreadsheet, so I can go back and see who has applied to actually use the platform. Another site would be Create ABQ for the accelerator. That's based on our platform and has been for quite a bit of time.
I would say that there are at least 3 people in this room who don't understand what you're saying. If you were to have a class, 60 minutes, post a time, date, place, people might show up. They might learn what you can do for them, and then you are more successful. You make more money.
I will do that class every day of the week when there are people showing up. And that gets, though, to, you're right. I truly feel like an evangelist at this point. Not just because I'm speaking for the company, but because this concept is something that not everyone is utilizing, this concept of static apps. So you're absolutely right. That's part of what we're working with the accelerators to do, not just as part of their cohort groups, but actually to put together those events. And part of what I'm really looking to ramp up at this time. You had a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering the difference between an app and a static site in terms of Google results and searchability. Does it affect it in any way? Or how do people find you as an app versus as a website?
Well, so a static web app is different than an app for the iPhone or the Android, primarily through you develop it differently, different languages, and also the marketplace. So by doing a web app, you have one application you're developing that is accessible through multiple devices, and it's going to be inherently discoverable. As far as the quality of how it's discoverable in that content, a large part of that depends on who's developing it and how you build out that content. But that's how just SEO in general works. There are plenty of WordPress sites that Google is not going to care about because you didn't quite fine-tune it properly. The ability to fine-tune is there. Well, and so as far as the performance, so the site's significantly faster, in part because it doesn't have to think about that content. And so that is a partial factor in search engine optimization. I'm not going to stand up here, though, and say, hey, this is going to be the difference, because I want to say there's 600 factors, about 200 you can work with. But it is helpful, and I am seeing our sites do well in Google compared to other similar sites.
It's really exciting to see where you guys have come since the beginning. I remember, so my two questions, do you still have the speakeasy? B, what do you think has been one of the biggest challenges that you've overcome as a startup? And this is more for James, because I mean, we saw how we were one of the first parties for them. Not for everybody.
No, that's quite right. I will say we do have a Slack support channel. It's bowtie-support, and that's where users can get access and support and that sort of thing. I think that may be what you're referencing with this speakeasy. Oh.
Okay, so Speakeasy still exists. It's still there, but I think we find ourselves over at Zendo a lot now because we drink way too much coffee. So you probably see us over there too. And the greatest challenge so far, really trying to listen to the market probably and trying to figure out how to prioritize what the market is asking us for. We have so many different tendrils out in different places in the market. We're working with different types of design firms, different types of developers. Some of them want to extend some of the more marketing-driven features. Some of them want to do more of the development features. Some people want more team control and access management. And I think the greatest challenge is really getting everybody together, sitting down, trying to figure out what we build next and how we do it right. Thank you.
Other question?
So if you take a time for that class, like that gentleman mentioned, I'd like to know.
Awesome. So part of the reason that we set up launchabq.com is if you go there and you sign up, even if you don't intend to use the platform today, we will be able to send out those sorts of notifications. Part of the challenge that I have, obviously, is not just setting up the events, but making sure that everyone's aware of it. And this is a fantastic forum. Thank you very much, Eric. But absolutely, if you want to be kept in the loop on that stuff, we'll do everything to announce all of those events as they come around. But the quickest way to make sure that you'll find out all that information is actually just going to launchabq.com and signing up. Will do.
I'll ask the last question. Wait a second. Just kidding. How can we as a community help you continue to grow Bowtie?
Help us schedule those classes, finding the avenues, the groups. We're really looking for different groups of developers, ranging from, again, the senior level down to the junior level to the people who are. One of the exciting things about the teen startup weekend was that we had teenagers who were already working in HTML and CSS. And those are the kind of kids that we want to help create in that ecosystem. And so if you have an idea for places that we can either host classes, do partnerships, that sort of thing, absolutely. We'll be doing it on our own, but we're looking to integrate with as many groups as possible in town.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks again for Bowtie. Couple, try and get through a few announcements. No less than a dozen. It's Entrepreneurial Wednesday. How many people have heard of this Entrepreneurial Wednesday thing that we've been doing here in Albuquerque? Great, a number of hands. We didn't ask before. How many folks, or did we? Did we ask how many people were here? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, I was drinking coffee. I was drinking tea. The tea had me all thrown off. We're so glad you join us on a weekly basis. We want to thank all of our sponsors. I think we skipped Sabio Systems before. Sabio Systems has been with us from the very beginning as far as helping us with the coffee and all that kind of stuff. We've got some other announcements about sponsorship and other things coming up, but really we can't do it with all the sponsors and with all of you joining us on a weekly basis. Entrepreneurial Wednesday, 2 p.m. You can join over at over at ABQID. They've got a special speaker. It's product-based entrepreneurship with Centipede Tool. That's at 2 p.m. That's with Lori over at ABQID. Also this afternoon from 3 to 5 p.m. entrepreneurial office hours have moved over to Epicenter, which is also kind of sort of across the street. Everything's pretty much in walking distance, and it's going to be a beautiful day. In addition to that, a couple other things. Thursday, tomorrow night, there's like too many things happening in town, so you're going to have to, basically Periscope one, watch another, be on Blab, and a couple of other things. So you can attend all of these. So basically, Albuquerque Business First, they're doing their Book of Lists party. That's over at Isleta. Also, tomorrow night, there's the Technology Enthusiasts with Charles over here. This is a great group. That's tonight. I'm sorry, I'm screwing that up. So tonight, in fact, the only thing to do tonight is either with Charles. All right. Tomorrow night also Design Jam. Some of the people with Bowtie and other great folks in the room. Yes, I'm looking at Amy. Creative startups. They're going to be part of a thing called Design Jam. Some folks from Adobe said, great things are happening in Albuquerque. Why don't we go to town and put together a neat event, teach some people, have a neat contest to make great things happen. So they've got a great event happening tomorrow night, and that is over at the Harwood Art Center. Quick shout out, I think most people probably saw the news, but Creative Startups was recently recognized by the Kaufman Foundation. Got a little bit of cash to help scale what you're doing with multiple cities across the country. How about a big round of applause? Tom, Amy, great group making fantastic things happen. In addition to that, so let's see, also in the news, we might hear a little bit more about and we'll be publishing more about this, but TVC has got a new event series that they're going to be launching, Technology Ventures Corporation, so that starts in February. This coming weekend, if you're interested in games, this is the best time in the world for you to join up with local game developers and make games happen. The Albuquerque Game Developers Guild, SIGGRAPH, and some other folks from UNM all throughout the community are getting together to be part of the Global Game Jam. I think this is the 7th year that it's happened. We've been part of it since the very beginning, but it's a great way. You take a course of a whole weekend, teams come together, they build games, they have a lot of fun, they meet people, and they start the businesses that are, could be part of the rest of their lives. Also coming next week, Sonia, yes, I'm looking at you. That workshop's on Wednesday, is that correct? Yes. So you've heard maybe a little bit about Dovetail workshops for woodworkers. How many slots do you have left?
We have 8 slots left.
8 slots left. So see Sonia right after this. We're going to require that she stays in that seat. It's a great way of learning how to do some woodworking, and you also get to drink some beer over at Tractor, not necessarily at exactly the same time. And also coming next week, some of my friends, Dara and Larry over here, we're part of a thing called Entrepreneurial Happy Hour. So next Thursday, we'll be going to be talking about passion projects. We're still looking for a couple submissions. I think we'll plan on making our an announcement by Friday as far as who's going to speak. But if you look for Entrepreneurial Happy Hour, we will share more information about that. If you're interested in going to South by Southwest, there's a bunch of folks who are heading that way. If you know of people who are going there, let's make the most of that trip. Let's highlight the startups, entrepreneurs, and other creatives we have in our community. So come see me after or whenever, but yes, we'd like to get more people going to South by Southwest. I think we have a special announcement. I'm going to invite Steve up. I'm sorry, is paging Todd Hunter? Do we have a Todd Hunter in the audience? It's not your birthday though, right? So no one's going to sing a song. Well, that's good. We have a new sponsor. Technology Ventures Corporation has been helping us from the very beginning, but they're going to help us out even more. So with that, let's get you out of the, exactly.
Great. Thank you. Todd Hunter's my name. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, Director of Business Ops for Technology Ventures Corporation. I usually am in the back of the room, so it's great to see faces as opposed to backs of heads, so it's a different perspective up here. That's good. But again, Technology Ventures Corporation is just happy to join in the sponsorship of 1 Million Cups for 2016. Those of you unfamiliar with Technology Ventures, we're the only nonprofit entity of Lockheed Martin Corporation, and we're fully funded by a grant from Lockheed Martin Corporation as a nonprofit entity of Lockheed, specializing in helping entrepreneurs with tech commercialization. So I represent one of many on our team. Valerie McKinney's here in the room. Also, Steve Cook is one of our project managers. So if you have questions about Technology Ventures or want to engage with Technology Ventures, all our services are complimentary and free from that grant. So please seek one of us out in the audience and we'll provide some more information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we want to thank, what's that? And tea. So if you're a fan of tea, Technology Ventures is responsible for introducing tea to our community. I've heard about this thing for many, many years, and I really don't know what to make of it. But if you're enjoying, how many people are liking the tea? Wow, good number of hands. Fantastic. We're going to listen to our customers and continue that. TVC and John Freisinger are directly responsible for that. We want to thank. Do you have a special announcement?
So as further incentive to go to South by Southwest this year, our mayor has been picked to run a panel by Southwest on how to bootstrap your city to become entrepreneurial. So we've gotten attention nationally on this, and South by Southwest has asked for us to come and present on that. Mayor will be doing a panel in prime time. So if you want to come be proud of your city, come to South by Southwest this year.
Thanks very much, Gary. And thanks to all of you that are helping grow our community. We hope to see you again next week. Thanks again.